They can shake the earth beneath your feet. They can strip away your comforts, your applause, your safety nets. They can turn the crowd against you. They can bury you in silence. But if your mind is fortified, if your thoughts are armored in unshakable clarity and ruthless purpose, no force, no failure can break you, because true strength isn't built in comfort. It's forged in fire. The man who thinks with power walks through chaos like its choreography, unmoved, focused. Inevitable, that is the kind of thinking the world cannot crush. Look at Lincoln, buried beneath public defeat, personal loss, and the voices of a nation that once mocked him. But the man held a mind welded to purpose. He thought not like a victim of circumstance, but like a servant of destiny. He knew, if you hold the right thought long enough, the world eventually bows to your vision, because a man is not defeated when he is broken. He is only defeated when he believes he is. So what do you believe? What do you think in the silence when no one's watching? Because that's the birthplace of everything, your fortune or your fall. Your future or your failure, everything begins in the garden of thought. And if that garden is poisoned with doubt, fear, or laziness, your life becomes the harvest of your own neglect. But if that garden is cultivated with belief, with precision, with vision, then even a storm becomes a seedbed for greatness. Edison failed over 1,000 times. He didn't care. He thought on a different frequency. He didn't take failure personally. He took it as data. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10 zeros. Zero ways that won't work. That's not just optimism, that's a warrior's mind. Most people beg the world to go easy on them. They pray for peace before they've proven they can survive war. But the thinkers who bend history, they think like warriors even in peace. So when the storms come, they don't flinch. They adjust. They adapt. And they endure until the tides obey them. Because here's the truth no one wants to hear. No one is coming to save you. No one owes you understanding. No one is going to carry you to greatness. But if you think like this, you won't need them to. The people who rise above the world's chaos are not the ones with perfect conditions. They are the ones who mastered how to think through the chaos. They trained their thoughts like soldiers. They disciplined their minds until doubt couldn't breathe inside them. They spoke to themselves with such conviction, the universe began to listen. You don't need 10 talents. You need one burning belief that you guard like treasure. That belief, that inner fire, is what makes you unbreakable. And when the world says you're not enough, that fire says, watch me. When the plan falls apart, that fire says, I'll build a better one. When you're on your knees with nothing left, that fire says, stand again. That's not arrogance. That's alignment with the truth of your own potential. But here's the secret most never realize. To think like this, you must choose it daily. You must war against the soft voice of weakness, that whisper that says, take it easy, stay safe, wait a little longer. That voice is a thief, and its favorite thing to steal is time. If you want to live on fire, you must silence the whispers of fear. Every great mind you admire, Carnegie, Ford, Disney, Mandela, they weren't made by ease. They were made by decision. They decided who they were long before the world agreed. Ford was mocked for believing a V8 engine was possible. His engineers told him it couldn't be done, but he said, build it anyway. They thought he was insane until they built it. Why? Because he refused to entertain thoughts of limitation. He thought like a commander, not a clerk. The world will always try to negotiate with your dreams. It will offer you smaller, safer versions of who you could be. And if your mind is weak, you'll say yes to those bargains. But if your thoughts are set like steel, you don't negotiate with fear. You command your life, and that's the mindset that can't be broken. Not because it's never tested, but because it's tempered by every test. Pain becomes fuel, rejection becomes redirection, failure becomes feedback, and every no becomes a sharpened yes until destiny itself becomes inevitable. This is the thinking that terrifies mediocrity. It's the thinking that takes a man from broke to billionaire, from overlooked to unstoppable, from invisible to immortal. And it's not magic. It's not luck. It's a choice made again and again until it becomes who you are. So when life knocks you down, don't ask why me, ask what now. Don't look for escape, look for strategy. Don't seek pity, command progress. This is the code of those who cannot be broken, not because they've never bled, but because they learned to bleed with purpose. Their thoughts are weapons, their vision is a map, and their heart unshakable. So when you face resistance, and you will, don't shrink, don't stall, don't whine, don't wait for permission. Stand up. Stand like Churchill in the rubble. Stand like Mandela in the cell. Stand like every man who was counted out and came back counted on. And when they ask how you did it, let them know no one could break you. Because you never let them in your mind, then listen closely, because the next moment is where most people tap out. It's not the beginning of the journey that breaks them, it's the middle. The part where nothing makes sense, where no one claps, where the dream feels like a burden instead of a blessing. This is the part where the world starts whispering, give up. But the ones who are unbreakable, they don't listen because they've already made a decision that no pain, no setback, no betrayal will outrank their purpose. You have to outlast the silence, outthink the noise, outbelieve the doubt. Every empire that ever rose began in one place, the unseen battlefield of the mind. The Roman generals knew it. The samurai lived it. The entrepreneurs who bend this world into their vision, they breathe it. They don't panic when the storm hits. They smile because they trained for this. Discipline is not a punishment, it's a passport. It's the cost of walking into your future fully armed, fully awake, and fully ready. Most people live their entire lives ducking pain, avoiding hardship, chasing cheap comfort. But you were never built for easy. You were built for elevation, and there is no elevation without resistance. The moment you accept that is the moment you become dangerous, because now pain isn't something you run from, it's something you learn from. It sharpens your instincts, it refines your path, it reveals what's real and what's weak. You begin to see challenges not as threats, but as invitations, tests sent to verify whether you truly believe what you say you believe, because talk is cheap, belief is paid for in adversity. Every time you get up, when quitting feels easier, every time you keep moving forward, when your legs scream, stop your proving to life, to yourself, and to the world, you cannot be broken. That's not ego. That's evidence the kind only warriors carry. And let's get something clear. No one becomes legendary by avoiding discomfort. No one writes history by playing it safe, the greats. They ran toward the hard things. They stared down the impossible and said, let's go. You don't get to where you're meant to be by staying where it's comfortable. You get there by becoming someone the storm can't move, and to do that, you must master your mind. Not just occasionally, daily. You must speak to yourself louder than the world speaks to you. You must repeat the vision until the doubt dies out. You must feed your mind with clarity, or it will feast on confusion. Because make no mistake, if you don't program your thoughts, the world will do it for you. You think fear is natural. It's trained. You think mediocrity is normal. It's inherited. But greatness is chosen every single day by those willing to fight for it in thought before they ever see it in reality. This is why the great ones win, not because they're smarter, not because they're stronger, but because their inner world is aligned so precisely that nothing external can sabotage it. Their mind is their fortress, and inside it there are no doubts, no excuses, no maybes, only the vision. Only the mission, only the next step forward. They understand that the outside world is just a mirror, a reflection of what they've already accepted or rejected inside themselves. So if you want to change your life, change your thoughts. Change your standards, change what you tolerate, what you allow, what you expect, because no one can give you what you refuse to demand from yourself. You want the respect, earn it in private. You want the results. Out, discipline everyone. You want the freedom, build it with habits no one sees. This is the way of the unbreakable, the silent builder, the invisible warrior, the one who trains in the dark until the world can no longer ignore the light they've become. So if you're walking through hell right now, good, keep walking, but walk like a king. Walk like every step is declaring war on the lies that once kept you small. You don't shrink here, you expand. You don't fold here. You forge, and when they look back and wonder how you did it, how you survived the fire, how you rose from nothing, how you kept going when most would have crumbled, let them know you weren't lucky. You weren't gifted. You trained your mind to think like this, and no one can break a man who owns his mind, because when your thoughts are anchored in vision, not circumstance, you become untouchable. The winds of failure blow, but they don't move you. The storms come, but they don't shake you, because your compass is set and your soul refuses to drift. Vision is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Without it, you're at the mercy of everything, opinions, moods, setbacks. But with it, you become a force. You don't just react to life, you create it. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. They couldn't see the empire in his mind, but he did. He saw a world before it existed. He held that vision through bankruptcy, betrayal, breakdowns, and in the end, the world watched his imagination become reality. Why? Because he refused to think like the world. He refused to let small minds dictate his limits. And that's exactly what you must do now. If you want a life others can't imagine, you must think in ways they never will. Most people spend their lives staring at the dirt. But you must look to the sky and see the future that could be, then pull it into reality with every step, every habit, every thought. That's how vision becomes victory, but vision without action is fantasy. So once you see it move, move with purpose, move with discipline, move like the clock is ticking, because it is. There's a silent war happening every day between the life you have and the one you're capable of. And the battlefield is built on actions no one sees. You don't rise by wishing. You rise by working. You rise by doing what others won't not once, but until it's done. Discipline is the muscle of belief. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you prove to your mind, I'm serious. And that seriousness, that self-respect, builds a life that demands to be respected. Most people are waiting to feel motivated. But the unbreakable, they act their way into motivation. They move first and let emotion catch up, because waiting is a lie. Waiting is just fear in disguise, and you can't afford to fear your own greatness. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, people will doubt you. Yes, you'll face rejection, failure, exhaustion. Good, that's the tuition for greatness. That's the fire that forges the kind of man who commands his fate. You don't become unbreakable by being untested. You become unbreakable by standing tall after the test. So take the hits, learn, adjust, and go again. Every punch life throws is another chance to show that your spirit is off the grid. Untouchable, uncompromising, unrelenting, because if you refuse to quit you win, not always immediately, but inevitably. So ask yourself now, is your mind trained for war, or pampered by comfort? Is your vision stronger than your excuses? Because this world is not going to hand you your destiny. You've got to take it with the fire in your eyes and the roar in your chest that says, I was born for this, not to survive, but to lead, not to conform, but to conquer. Let them talk. Let them laugh, let them doubt, and when they sleep build, when they rest rise, when they fear forge ahead. That's the mindset that makes you impossible to defeat. Not because you never fall, but because falling is just part of your process. You've already decided, I don't break, I become. And that's how it begins, with one thought so powerful it rewrites your identity, with one shift that turns pressure into fuel, with one refusal to be average. Ever again, ChatGPT said, because identity is not found, it's forged. You don't stumble into greatness, you sculpt it. With the hammer of discipline and the chisel of consistency, you carve away every lie the world told you about who you are and what you're capable of. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not the voice in your head that whispers, not enough. You are what you decide to become, and that decision starts with a single, unshakable belief. I am the one. I will not fold. I will not fade. I will rise. Look at Muhammad Ali. Before he was the champion, he called himself the greatest, not after the belts, not after the world acknowledged him, but before. That's the level of identity you must claim. You don't need permission to become powerful. You decide to become powerful, then you act like it until the world catches up. Because everything in your life is echoing who you believe you are. And if you see yourself as broken, the world will hand you evidence of it. But if you see yourself as built for victory, the world won't be able to stop handing you challenges. Just to see if you're serious, good, let it come, because your identity doesn't shrink from challenge, it feeds on it. Grit is built in the unseen hours when you show up tired, when you repeat the habit for the 100th time, when no one's cheering and no one sees and no one cares, but you keep showing up anyway. That's grit. That's greatness. It's the moment you do it without feeling like it, that's when you take control, not just of the day, but of your destiny, because every time you follow through on your word to yourself, you stack confidence. You stack proof, you stack power. You're not hoping anymore, you're knowing, because now you've earned the right to walk with certainty, not arrogance, alignment. The world may throw chaos, but you throw back clarity. The world may throw setbacks, but you throw back strategy, you stop reacting, you start commanding, and suddenly life begins to bend not because it's easy, but because you've become relentless. You stopped asking, can I? You started saying, watch me, and in that shift, you became untouchable. You became the person who doesn't wait to feel ready. You act like the man who already owns the outcome. You show up like the future is inevitable because in your mind it already is. You don't hope anymore, you declare, you expect, you execute, because you're not just thinking different, you've become different, and now the world doesn't recognize you. Good. You didn't come to be recognized. You came to be remembered, so burn the excuses, bury the distractions, and become the one who didn't just survive the fire, you used it. ChatGPT said, then this is it, the moment where everything either collapses or ignites, the point where most give in but you lock in, where weakness gets loud but your will gets louder, because by now you're no longer thinking like the man you were. You're thinking like the man who wins. You're thinking like the man who cannot be broken, the old you, the one who hesitated, who apologized for dreaming too big, who played small to make others comfortable. That man is gone, buried beneath the weight of 1,000 silent victories, replaced by someone unshakable, someone who no longer flinches at failure because he understands it, respects it, uses it, someone who no longer waits for conditions to be perfect because he builds in the chaos, someone who walks like he's already carrying the crown, not because of ego, but because of evidence. Every morning he rose before the sun. Every rep he finished when his muscles begged him to quit. Every book, every battle, every betrayal he outlasted. It all added up to this, an unbreakable identity, a mind trained not just to survive but to dominate. This is the power most never taste because it takes everything, your comfort, your excuses, your doubt. But what it gives back is freedom, not freedom from challenge, freedom through it, freedom to face anything and still rise, freedom to know, I've walked through hell and left footprints. So now, when life tries to test you, you don't hope it goes easy. You stare it down and say, test me, because pressure doesn't destroy you anymore, it activates you. You don't shrink when the path gets dark, you become the light, you don't run when it gets hard. You lock in, you don't chase success with desperation, you attract it with discipline. You've become the kind of man the world cannot shake, not because you don't feel pain, but because you won't submit to it. You've turned struggle into steel, you've turned doubt into drive, you've turned every failure into fuel, and now you don't just believe you know, no one can break me, not the economy, not the critics. Not time, not trauma, not even life itself, because I've already conquered the battlefield that matters most, my own mind, and when the final chapter of this life is written, let it be said that you did not yield, that you stood when others fell, that you spoke truth when the world demanded silence, that you kept building when the odds were laughing in your face. Let it be said that the world tried, but it could not break you. Because you didn't think like the rest, you didn't live like the rest, you didn't move like the rest, you thought like this, and that changed everything.